Well, we're outside the sand house, which is on the beach in Rossnowlagh, and this was a family home for many years. Started back in 1857. It would have been my great grandfather. His name is John Diver, and was able to lease the property here, and he built a three-room shebeen. Family lived in there, and they sold drinks until they got caught up and had to get a license, and then it kind of grew. It grew as a family home, as well as a place to make some money. And it eventually developed into a 10-room inn, and they called it the Sand House, and they ran it as an inn and it was in the family until 1934 or 5, depending on who you believe. St. Patrick's Day, 1935, it was sold out of the family. I think would have been my great grandfather, James, left a farm situation, a tenant farm or somewhere. He left his family as a youth, and his parents tried to drag him back, and they put him in court, and the judge said that he could choose whether he wanted to go back and live there or whether he wanted to be free and be here. And at that point, he was able to lease land and work with these people. He had an arrangement with the Jennings. He paid his rent by working on their farm 1 day a week, and that paid for the lease of this land here. He died fairly young, and his wife, Isabel McIntyre, McBride. She really became the heart and soul of this until the 1920s or 30s. She was really the brains and the heart, and she ran this. She developed it into a much larger and more successful operation. The railway came in here, and
yes,
and because they could bring people, from Dublin and across the country here, there was a certain amount of success. One of my dad's first cousins, gave us some telephone numbers of people that were still in the north here. And so when we were here, we called those people, and we spent time with them, and then they came and visited us in the States several times, and they have children, and our children kind of got to know them, and really some bonds developed. And because of that, my son wanted to have a family reunion.
So where are you all staying?
We're all staying at the Sand House. Last night, my son arranged for us to have dinner at the Smuggler's Inn, and we kind of took over the place. And for us, I think this is extremely important for the next generations to keep those ties with Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a son and a daughter of that generation. They've already established the ties because of visitations back and forth, and so those are firm. But there's grandchildren involved, and so it's important for our grandchildren to establish that relationship with their Irish cousins of their generation.
Mm-hmm.
If not, it's going to go.
Mm-hmm. So tell us briefly about the tour that you're doing later.
I'm hoping to see some of the places and the names I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And, it'll be interesting.
There was a diver that lived here, and she worked for various people doing housekeeping, and I think her little cottage is just down the road, so we're going to visit that, do a walking tour of all the sites that would have been relevant to the divers, and then we're going to go to the cemetery. Tonight we're having the family reunion proper in the Sand House.
Right. It's great to have the history. It's really wonderful. The living history.
Yeah, it's a living
It's
history.
not a dead history.
No.
It goes on.
No.